May I request Dr. Rajat Kathuria, Director, Chief Executive, ICRIER, Dr. Ahluwalia, our Chairperson, Dr. S.K. Malhotra, Agriculture and Horticulture Commissioner, Professor Arpita Mukherjee, and Mr. Tanu to please come on the dais. I now request Dr. Rajat Kathuria, Director and Chief Executive, ICRIER, to give the introductory remarks.
Thank you, Tanu, and a warm welcome to all of you to this report release. And at the outset, let me apologize for the delay in kicking this off, but let me assure you that it'll be well worth the wait. It's my indeed great, immense pleasure to invite you, to welcome you, in fact, to the release of India's Phytonutrient Report, a snapshot of fruits and vegetable consumption, availability and implications for phytonutrient intake, authored by Arpita Mukherjee, Souvik Dutta, and Tanu Goyal, and published by Academic Foundation. We would also like to thank Amway Opportunity Foundation for sponsoring this study. It is a great honor for us to have amongst us our Chairperson, Dr. Ahluwalia, and Shri S.K. Malhotra, Agriculture and Horticulture Commissioner, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Government of India. And of course, a great pleasure to welcome Arpita Mukherjee, who's led this team, and of course, Shanu Kapila, who's been long associated with ICRIER. So thank you all for being here this morning. Let me say a little bit about the report, very little. Of course, the authors will discuss what's gone into the report. It's extremely timely. As you will all agree, this report is extremely timely. So far in India, the focus of malnutrition has been on certain income groups and has focused on those income groups. And that was natural. I guess we are a developing country. Now World Bank says that we've kind of moved up from a low-income country to a middle-income country, but we are still in the lower end of the middle-income countries. So we are still a country that is going through structural transformation. Agriculture, as you will hear about later during the report, when it is discussed, agriculture still constitutes a huge amount of not a huge amount of GDP. GDP is only about 13 to 14%, but it still supports a large number of people who will eventually move to urban areas, and therefore nutritional intake will become especially important as income increases, diet patterns change, and therefore the nutrition intake will become even more important in India. We all know that India is a very young country. India is a very young population, perhaps the youngest country in the world, and therefore we face challenges of trying to create productive job opportunities for all those people, including the people who will come into urban areas over the next decades. And by one estimate of the erstwhile Planning Commission, we are adding about 1 million people to our workforce every year. And it's important that if we have to get them productive jobs, if it's important that if we have to provide them opportunities in urban areas, which will really be the creator of productive jobs going forward, this population is a healthy population. None of our initiatives that are aligned with job creation and skilling India that our Prime Minister is speaking about, none of those initiatives will actually find traction unless we have a healthy and a young population. We have a young population, but we know that we need to have a healthy population. Although it's a cliche, you must have heard about this cliche, health is wealth, but in this case, I think it's rather appropriate. In this background, the need to create a healthy population, in this background, ICRIER conducted this study, and the title, as I've mentioned, and you can see in the backdrop, based on both secondary and primary information. The survey examines the consumption of fruits and vegetables patterns for Indian consumers. And this, and as you will see in the executive summary that you have in your packets, and the authors will also discuss this, there is a minimum level of intake that is required according to the WHO report, and I believe it's 400 grams per day of fruits and vegetables. And as the authors will discuss, there is a shortfall in consumption across regions, across cities, across income groups, and the report has tried to identify the reasons for this shortfall. And then, of course, as we do in all our studies, we've tried to identify what are the policy recommendations will be useful in trying to take this forward, in trying to bridge this gap. Of course, we need to increase incomes and increase access. But as with all policy recommendations, and as with all the work ICRIER does, is that we try to kind of influence, create knowledge for a public discourse, so that we are able to put together a financial architecture that is useful and practicable. So in this context, in the specific context, it's important to note that once we've made the policy recommendations based on this study, it's also important not only disseminate it like we're doing today, but it's also important, I think, to identify the complementary policy architecture that needs to be put in place to kind of maximize the benefit of what we are trying to do. Remember, at the end of the day, we want a healthy population, we want a productive population, we want a population that is able to have an impact on our GDP. So that India remains the fastest growing country in the world. That's the ultimate objective. So while nutritional intake is important and we've identified the shortfalls, it's important also to identify complementary infrastructure, policy infrastructure that needs to be put in place. So just by tweaking one policy, it may be a good start, but what I'm saying, it may not be enough. And in this context, what I mean to say, and what I guess all of you already know, but just let me reinforce it, when India is the largest producer, or one of the largest producers of fruits and vegetables in the world, a lot of those fruits and vegetables get lost either in transit or they just waste because we don't have good supply chains, we don't have good cold chains, we don't have good warehousing facilities. All that is important to enable access as well. And of course, capacity building, having good institutions and education of farmers and the population at large is also important. So while we're talking about the need to improve the nutritional intake and how we can do it, we need to also identify what the other kind of complementary policy bottlenecks are. And one of them, of course, now which has become increasingly important, and the commissioner is here, he will of course mention it, is food safety and regulatory standards. Those are also important. We know what happened last year. Indian consignment of exports of fruits was stopped in countries like European Union and the United States due to excessive pesticide control. So while we're discussing nutrition and the shortfalls, I think it's also important to recognize what the larger policy infrastructure is and what we would need to put in place to maximize or to leverage the benefits of what we are trying to do. This report has already in a sense, this is a dissemination, but we are thankful to a number of people who've actually commented and read the draft of the report, and we would like to express our gratitude to the Ministry of Food Processing Industries, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, National Center for Cold Chain Development, Agricultural Trade Negotiators in the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, just to name a few who've given us comments on the report. We would also like to thank Mr. Pallav Ghosh and his team, members of SRG Consulting, for conducting a vast pan-Indian survey. As I said, this study is based on both secondary and primary information, and we've conducted a primary survey across India of just over 1,000 consumers, 1,001 to be exact, and the authors will obviously talk about the sampling technique that has been deployed to get the primary information. We are also grateful to Mr. Shanu Kapila, Director, Academic Foundation. ICRIER, as I said, has a long-standing relationship with Mr. Kapila and Academic Foundation, and time and again, we have delivered good quality reports on different areas of importance to public, government, and businesses. And literally, even in this case, Mr. Kapila has had to burn the midnight oil to get the report out in time so that it is released on the day it is supposed to be released. So thank you, Mr. Kapila, for doing this. And once again, thank you, all of you, for being here today on this, as I said, very important occasion. ICRIER will continue to working on the frontiers of trying to create knowledge and policy in this important area. And we are deeply indebted to our chairperson, Dr. Ahluwalia, for providing us all the support to be able to do this. And may I now request her to please come and give the welcome address. Thank you all very much.
Shri Malhotra, Dr. Rajat Kathuria, Professor Arpita Mukherjee, Mr. Shanu Kapila, and distinguished guests. Let me add my very warm welcome to what Dr. Kathuria has just said. What he did not tell you was that I more or less gate crashed into this seminar. I learnt about it yesterday, and I said to him, all right, I think this is so close to my heart, I'm going to come and attend. And the next thing I knew was Professor Mukherjee was sort of unleashed on me with talking points and how I needed to be on the dais, so I dutifully reported on time. But what I want to tell you is not so much what she has given me as talking points, because I think they're in the presence of nutritionists, scientists, agricultural scientists, and others. There are better people to talk about that. But I just thought that I'd share with you, in a way, ICRIER's journey into this subject and my personal journey, and how I feel that more and more people are now, they have to become stakeholders in this vision. Because, in fact, I was reminded because one of my old colleagues from the Center for Policy Research, Professor Ajit Mazumdar, who's sitting here, said to me, I didn't know ICRIER did studies like this. So I told him that yes, he said ICRIER is known for studies on trade and competitiveness. I said yes, but competitiveness is connected with productivity. And productivity is connected with education and health. And health does not just mean how many primary health care centers and how many secondary health care centers and specialized tertiary hospitals that we have, but health also means public health, and health also means nutrition. So that's how we have found in ICRIER over time getting into this field, which really ought to be the first point where we must begin. But I'm confessing that we economists for a long time have taken education and health for granted and worked on interest rates and exchange rates and macroeconomic stabilization, and hoped that with the growth that we'll bring about, these problems will be solved on their own. Now, I'll just like to mention a few things on this very important subject. I think it was about 12 years ago that I had done an India survey report for The Economist. And at that point, the only information that I could get on fruits and vegetables in India was, one, that we were the largest producer of fruits and vegetables, but also that we had the largest loss of any country. And at that time, the figure mentioned was 75 to 80% of fruits and vegetables they actually just perish. And I was completely shocked out of my wits. Today, I'm told the figure may be somewhere around 40 to 50%, but in the feedback that I got from Mr. Kohli, and I'm sure he'll tell you more about it, his feeling is that even if we do not improve our logistics, if we do not improve our refrigeration capacity, if we do not build cold chain, and if we do not improve our behavior to use fruits and vegetables, we destroy the nutritional content. And in that sense, the loss is much larger than what the physical loss may appear to be. So that's the first point. The second point I would like to make is that, we talk about food security and we stop at food grains. First, we don't talk of nutrition security, which would mean that we will need to deliver clean water so that whatever we eat doesn't just drain away and is contaminated by the water we drink. But even if you leave that aside, the maximum that we do is we go beyond food grains to dals. But we don't talk as much as we need to about dairy and fruits and vegetables. And here, in this report, you not only get the WHO scientific norm for how much you need to take, 400 grams, as was just mentioned, but also what all you need to do to retain the quality of that fruit and vegetable that you actually consume. So I can't tell you how delighted I am that ICRIER is getting into this field. And I think of any economy, of any society, no matter whether you are the second fastest growing economy or you are going to become the fastest growing economy, if you don't have the basic solid base of health and education, you cannot sustain that growth. So for that reason, when I heard what our team at ICRIER had done, thanks to Amway Opportunity Foundation, giving them this opportunity to work on this, I felt that I wanted to be there to congratulate them. And I thank all of you for coming here. It shows that you share in our vision on how important this subject is and how we need to put this on the top of the agenda if we want really to have sustainable growth and development in our country. So with those words, let me just offer the floor to those who know much better on the report.
Thank you, Dr. Ahluwalia, for those inspiring words. Let me now request Dr. S.K. Malhotra, Agriculture and Horticulture Commissioner, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Government of India, for his special address. The CVs are all in your packet, so we're not going to introduce the speakers. They're all there. Thank you, Dr. Malhotra.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody here. First of all, I beg apology because being late, because my flight was late by about half an hour. So, from that angle, I'm sorry for that. But anyway, we all know that India is the first country in the world who has enacted the Food Security Bill. And food security, which I believe that it is incomplete without nutritional security. And there is one famous saying that we are what we eat. So, from that angle, I say that here our nutrition, how that nutritional diet can be provided to the citizens. So some kind of calculations were made by the National Institute of Nutrition. I think they have done it, that minimal requirement per day per person is about 400 grams, which you were telling that 400 grams that is required. And you have mentioned in your this handout that 400 gram that is minimal requirement is there. But now I would like to share with you that now the production of horticulture crops, particularly these fruits, vegetables, spices, plantation crops, mushrooms, etc., has increased. And now the level which we have attained is 280 million tons. And for fruits and vegetables, the level is it's about 260 million tons. So if you calculate the gross availability per day per person, then it will go to around 360 plus 360 is for vegetable crops, and 160 is for fruit crops. But it's a gross one. But if you go for the if you little calculate the net availability, then it is 425 grams now. These are as per our recent calculations, new calculations. So production has increased, and Government of India has already initiated many new programs. You are aware about that, Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, and then Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, because risk management is another point which is required to be considered from that angle. That program has been launched by the Honorable PM, recently made the announcement about that. And then creation of the infrastructure, as Madam was also mentioning about that, regarding cold chain. Many of our senior colleagues are present here. Dr. Rathore, whom I can just recognize, he was Vice Chancellor and Assistant Director General in Indian Council of Agriculture, sir. I recognized Mr. Parvesh Sharma from Small Farmer Agriculture Consortium. Previously, he was there. So then Joshi Saab and many other dignitaries are available here. So here farmer producer organizations, farmer producer companies, such initiatives were also taken when Mr. Parvesh Sharma, he was there in the Small Farmer Agriculture Consortium. So yes, there is no doubt that previously what we were saying, that yes, cereals, these are the only staple foods, but now people are demanding for the diversified food they are asking for. If we go into any mall, we will find that mall culture is coming up, and different kinds of products have been displayed there. So now population is demanding more nutritionally rich products, particularly these horticulture crops, fruits and vegetable crops. When this subgroup for horticulture crops by Planning Commission, the then Planning Commission was there to work out that how much vegetables and fruit shall be required by the end of this 12th five-year plan. So the calculations which came to around 320 million tons. This will be the requirement by the end of 2016 and 17. And today the level which we have achieved is 280 million tons. So we are still lagging behind, and still we have to produce more. So as I was discussing, that Government of India, Ministry of Agriculture has already taken many initiatives. Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana is one of them, because our major production is coming from the arid and semi-arid ecosystem, where now resources are also constant in some of the areas. Sufficient water is not available for irrigation. So for better utilization and achieving the high water use efficiency, that program has been launched. Then from the food safety angle, that Pradhan Mantri Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana, that has been started. So here again organic cultivation is also getting the boost from that place, through that scheme. And then Unnat Krishi Yojana, that has been given name, National Horticulture Mission for Northeastern Hills. These are the programs which were started, and the basic objective is that there should be now productivity-led growth, not area expansion growth. Growth should not happen through area expansion. Means we do not believe in now for this area-led growth. So productivity-led growth should happen. So from that point of view, high-tech horticulture, that is being promoted. And then some other new initiatives are related to this marketing, national agriculture marketing. That's a new program. Now e-market, e-trading, these are the things which are happening. Then one of the mention was there related to post-harvest losses. Yes, previously we were not having the figures that how much post-harvest losses are occurring. So many of the citations were there that books, they were mentioning 40% losses, 30% losses. So some scientific calculations were not there. Then Central Institute of Post-Harvest Engineering and Technology, they did some plant studies, and a large sample was considered, and then they reached to the conclusion that these losses, they vary from crop to crop, place to place, and the losses, they vary from 5% to 18%. So we have to minimize those losses. To minimize those losses, now this cold chain, Mr. Pavnesh Kohli is here. So he's the CEO from NCCD, National Cold Chain Development Organization is there. So it is one of the national level agency, and they are working for making the standards and further guiding that how we can reduce those losses by addressing that full chain, cold chain that is required to be addressed. So in the past, what we were considering that only cold storages are required to be made, but now full cold chain, right from exactly after the harvesting, we need to follow. Pre-cooling is there, grading, sorting, packaging. These all things are required to be considered so that we can maintain the quality of the product. So these are some of the initiatives. So here I have gone through this pamphlet of this report, India's Phytonutrient report. I was just going through. I think it will be formally now released now. So I would like to congratulate the author, Dr. Arpita Mukherjee, and her team, Mr. Souvik, Dutta, and Mr. Tanu, Goyal. So with these words, I'll just conclude here. So I congratulate again to Madam for bringing out this publication. We will just go through, and it will be helpful for us for deciding in policy making that how we can utilize that knowledge which you have just put into this compilation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Malhotra. May I now request Dr. Malhotra and our chairperson, along with the authors, to kindly release the report. And following the release of the report, we'll have a short presentation on what is in the report by Dr. Arpita Mukherjee. May I also request the authors, Souvik and Tanu, to please come up onto the day so that we can have the benefit of their presence while we release the report as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. May I request Dr. Arpita Mukherjee to make a presentation on the findings of the report. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Dr. Ahluwalia and Dr. Malhotra, for coming in. Thank you, Shanu, and thank you, Dr. Kathuria, for always being there. Now, when we look into, let me first try to explain this concept of phytonutrient, which I myself found it to be quite tricky. Now, when we have our fruits and vegetables, what the WTO panel is trying to say, and different